Today on All Things 80s, are modern Star Wars toys overpriced? Welcome back to All Things 80s. Now, earlier today I was thinking about the prices of modern Star Wars toys and asked myself, are they excessive? So, in order to answer that question, I've used an online inflation calculator and I've entered the prices of the Star Wars toys back in the day versus the prices of Star Wars toys today. I've done a bit of back and forth to work out if the prices today are ripping people off. So I've used the prices of the action figures, and to keep it comparable, I've gone with the retro collection. And I've picked out a couple of vehicles to do the sort of similar comparisons. So let's take a look and see if in fact Star Wars toys today are overly expensive or not. So starting with the action figures, now in 1978, one action figure was costing $1.99, which when you take into account inflation, that equates to $8.23 in 2020. Now in 1980, the Kenner figures had gone up in price to $2.49, and that equates to $8.34 today. And finally, the Return of the Jedi figures in 1983 were costing $2.99, and that actually goes down a bit to $7.87 in 2020. Now, to flip things around, the retro collection figures today are selling for $9.99. Now, to sort of subtract inflation, that equates to $2.41 in 1978, $2.98 in 1980, and $3.79 in 1983. So in actual fact, the figures going in both directions are pretty much in the same ballpark. So it's safe to say that in 2020, $9.99 is indeed a very fair price for one action figure. Now to take a look at a couple of vehicles here and one creature. Now the Scout Walker, which came out in 1982, sold for $14.99. And with inflation, that equates to $35.99. Now in 2012, Hasbro did the Scout Walker, and that was selling for $34.99. And taking that back in time to 1982, that equates to $14.57. So basically, these prices are identical for the period in time we're talking about. The next vehicle is the Imperial Troop Transporter, where in 1979 that sold for $14.99, and with inflation today, that equates to $56.90. Now, the Vintage Collection Troop Transporter, which came out for The Mandalorian this year, sold at retail for $67, and going back in time with inflation to 1979, that equates to $17.65. So again, very similar in price. And finally, we'll look at a Tauntaun. So in 1980, that was selling for $8.99, and we're going to compare that to the 2011 Tauntaun that Hasbro gave us. And the $8.99 in 1980 equates to $25.69 in 2011. And in 2011, the Tauntaun Vintage Collection was selling for $24.99, and doing some reverse inflation, that equates to $8.75. So there you go. The prices that are being charged for modern Star Wars toys are actually very fair. That really did take me by surprise, because I just assumed that the prices that were being charged today were way too high and were ripping people off. But in terms of inflation, they're more or less the same prices that were being charged back in the day for the classic Kenner items. So I put my hand up and say I was wrong. Hasbro are in fact charging what appears to be a fair price for their merchandise, although it could be argued that things like a $400 Millennium Falcon or the $500 Sail Barge are taking the piss a bit. But for the sort of standard line of vehicles, figures, and creatures, the price does seem to be fair. So I guess I can no longer bitch about the prices being too much these days. And I guess the other thing was I was always basing my assumption on my sort of £1 a week pocket money thing, where I was saying, in 2020, I could not imagine a child being able to afford to buy a figure, but I have to assume that as the prices have risen with inflation, so has the amount of pocket money kids are getting. So there you go. Bit of interesting stuff for you, I hope. So thank you all for watching. Special thanks to the Patreons. I ask you to kindly like the video, please subscribe if you haven't already done so, and stay tuned for more videos from All Things 80s.